Now, just to demonstrate that what we have said is not the exception, but the general rule, let me quote from Dr. E.J.H. Corner, a botanist at Cambridge University. This man is an evolutionist. He said, much evidence can be adduced in favor of the theory of evolution from biology, biogeography, and paleontology. But I still think that to the unprejudiced, the fossil record of plants is in favor of spatial creation. End of quote. See what the man says? If you're unprejudiced, you have an open mind, in his field, as a botanist, he says the fossil record supports creation, not evolution. Now, Dr. Colin Patterson is the famous evolutionist or well-known paleontologist at the British Museum of Natural History. Dr. Patterson, certainly not a creationist, but this man has been very frank about many things. He published a book called Evolution a number of years ago. One of our creation scientists purchased that book and read it, enjoyed it, and Dr. Patterson invited comments from the readers. So my friend, this creation scientist, wrote to Dr. Patterson, this well-known paleontologist at the British Museum of Natural History. He said, Dr. Patterson, I enjoyed your book very much, but it would have been helpful if in that book you had presented some of the transitional forms. At least perhaps you could have had an artist illustrate what you think these things look like. In a letter dated April 10th, 1979, Dr. Patterson wrote to this creation scientist, and he made the following statement. Quote, I fully agree with your comments on the lack of direct illustration of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them. You suggest an artist should be asked to visualize such transformation, but where would he get the information from? I could not honestly provide it, and if I were to leave it to artistic license, would that not mislead the reader? End of quote. What does this famous paleontologist say? Sitting among one of the greatest collection of fossils in the world. He says, you're right. I don't have any examples of transitional forms in my book, but if I had known of any, I certainly would have included him. We see then the fossil record powerfully supports creation, but is directly contradictory to the theory of evolution. Thank you.
Ken, before the program you mentioned Dr. Gish's book, Evolution, the Fossils Say No.
Yes, a very famous book, John, but it's now been revised and updated and replaced by this one, Evolution, the Challenge of the Fossil Record. And in here he documents those large gaps he talked about in the fossil record. Also has a wonderful chapter dealing with the ape-men transitions and the fact of missing links, which, by the way, are still missing.
Mm-hmm. Actually, great resource for high school and college students, but kids love fossils as well, don't they? And there's a number of books written for children on the fossil record. This one by Dr. Gary Parker, Dry Bones and Other Fossils. This one for the junior high and high school students named Fossils, Key to the Present.
And John, for laymen, and for perhaps college age and high school students also, what is creation science? It's written from a layman's perspective, has an excellent chapter dealing with the fossil record. And if people want something of a little more technical nature, Scientific Creationism, edited by Dr. Henry Morris, has a great chapter dealing with the fossil record.
These books are strictly the scientific information, but if you really want to understand the fossils and the origin of the fossil record from a biblical perspective, this book, The Biblical Basis for Modern Science, does that very thing. It shows how each of the major scientific disciplines have their foundational tenets in the Word of God, and then shows how that scientific discipline must be developed in submission to the Word of God. A great resource for the Christian home.
These and other creation materials, including other programs in this Back to Genesis series, have been mightily used by God to answer questions both biblical and scientific, to convince skeptics of the truth of creation, to train up children in the way they should go, and to establish the importance of creation to the Christian faith. These materials can be ordered by calling toll-free 1-800-628-7640 or by writing to the Institute for Creation Research at Post Office Box 2667, El Cajon, California, 92021.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. In 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good.